Oregon beats Penn State, and they honestly should have dominated in this matchup here. The Ducks win 30-24, double overtime in really an exciting game in hindsight. It was boring for really the first 45 minutes. Oregon came out of the gate looking like the better team, clearly better team as the game evolved. Penn State made it exciting towards the end where they dominated the fourth quarter, but Oregon dominated 3 quarters of play and they won in overtime. And that was on the road in a very hostile environment against a team that preseason, per the sports books and per the preseason research, was better. Before we resume this segment, some great and free ways to support this channel are liking the video, watching it all the way through, commenting your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear your analysis, sharing the video, subscribing to the channel, and also hitting the notification bell. That way you can get notified when we go live or release new content. And don't just hit the notification bell for the channel. That's very helpful. But what's also helpful and free and useful to you, if you are a diehard fan of a specific team and want to get notifications whenever I make content about a specific team, not just my content in general, well, we have playlists for every Power 4 college football team. So the notification bell on any of those playlists you are interested in. If you want to support the channel financially, there are ways to do so in the description, and you can sign up as a paid member. Oregon looked and played as if they were the better team and on a completely different playing field on the offensive side of the ball and on a similar or close enough playing field on the defensive side of the ball. That's what this game boiled down to. But Penn State was favored by 4.5 points. Money was on Penn State here. The public was on Oregon. A lot of people were choosing Oregon, and I decided that I would follow my preseason research, and I was wrong. And that, I think, says a lot more about Oregon than it does about Penn State. There are parts of Penn State that clearly need soul searching and to be fixed. The offensive line, although that looked pretty good in the fourth quarter. I would say more so play calling and how you were able to attack defenses. It was really shocking how Oregon was on defense being fundamentally sound and just trying to attack Penn State. And they, by shocking, I'm not saying it was shocking that they were, trying to stop the run and being a good defense. But it was shocking how they were whipping Penn State for those first 3 quarters on the lines of scrimmage, and how well Oregon, it felt like, was they were playing cover 2. They were trying to keep everything in front of them. They made a clear concerted effort to not let Penn State run that ball, and they dared Penn State to throw on them. They attacked Penn State's perceived weaknesses and were correct there. Penn State didn't attack any of Oregon's weaknesses. Penn State didn't really make adjustments until that fourth quarter, and when they did, they started winning. It was the only reason they brought this to overtime, as they finally made adjustments in the fourth quarter. They were able to force Oregon to punt a few times in the fourth quarter and capitalize on some short, advantageous fields. But Oregon dominated here. When you look at game on paper, when you look at advanced analytics, they were in the 76th percentile in EPA per play with a 0.19. They had a 43% success rate. They had just above a 0 EPA per rush. Penn State, really, when you look at how Oregon's been running the ball and how their offense was lifeless, did a pretty good job, I think, outside of some power situations in trying to limit Oregon's attack on the ground. And EPA per dropback for Oregon was really impressive, 0.35 EPA per dropback. Oregon, what they did offensively against Penn State's defense is they know that Jim Knowles likes to play some bend but don't break, keep everything in front of him. And Penn State was largely successful there. But Oregon, as the game evolved, you could tell, knew that they just needed a few scores. So they kept dinking and dunking. They didn't try to get too cute or too explosive with anything. They kept trying to just gain 3-4 yards, cloud of dust. And with their strong offensive line, with a size edge over Penn State's defensive line, they were able to power through, and they were able to get some scores. Oregon had a 12% explosive play rate, which I think that some of that That one play, for example, where there was an obvious hold and denied Dennis Sutton, some of that's not on Penn State's defense. Some of that was also on Oregon's offense, though. Brycen Moore is clearly an alien wide receiver. Dante Moore, more so. He's a future NFL quarterback. Obviously, I don't know if his draft stock is going to be totally maximized this year because it is 1 year and we're only through 5 games for Oregon, but this was a big game for Oregon. I would venture offensively, given the environment, the travel, how young this offense is in parts. Brycen Moore, for example, is a true freshman wide receiver, and he is a stud. This offensive line didn't have a lot of cohesion because they had a ton of transfers coming in, and many of them didn't play in an environment like this. 0 full starts in the offensive line. This was probably the offense's toughest test, even factoring in the playoffs for the rest of the year. And they did just enough to win. Oregon's defense, meanwhile, talk about a turnaround here. Some of this might be because of the brokenness of Penn State's offense. I can tell based on watching Penn State's games against garbage opponents and Oregon's against garbage opponents and how they played in this game that Oregon's defense and offense are great and that Penn State's defense is great. I can also tell that Penn State's special teams unit is great. Oregon's has more work to do, but is at least serviceable. I cannot tell you what the Penn State offense is. So while I think that Oregon's defense is great, whether it is great or elite can certainly be dictated by how Penn State's offense does from here on out. And there is a lot to fix from this unit. Later on in the game, they made an effort, a concerted effort, and they were able to tie it up and send it to overtime. A big part of that is their 70% red zone success rate. They had a 0.27 EPA per rush, which was in the 87th percentile. At the end of the game, because of that dominant fourth quarter by Penn State actually did a better job stuffing the run defensively, which they were not really good at, but they had 15% defensive run stuff rate. Oregon only had an 8%. And that was because at the end of the game, Penn State was really able to lean on that ground game, both in that first overtime period and in that fourth quarter. I don't know why they didn't try to run it first and really continue to tire out Oregon's defense in that second overtime, but Kotelnicki was calling plays from outer space. So putting Drew Aller as a receiver with under 5 minutes left in the game, on a 3rd and 9, they're doing a wide receiver jet sweep option where Aller keeps it and Oregon reads it. And I'm kind of thinking, why don't you do a halfback pass out of the backfield or a screen or something would be more effective than that, with how Oregon had been shutting down Penn State's offense, specifically at the lines of scrimmage throughout that part of the game. It was crazy. It was mind-boggling to me. I felt crazy after that game, and I was wrong and clearly underestimated Oregon, clearly overestimated Penn State, but we correct. That's what I do here, at least on College Football with Sam, and try my best to do, is correct when I make a mistake. So my takeaways here, I want to ask you and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. Is Oregon the best team in football? I think that it is a Ducks versus Bucks argument right now as to who's number 1 and who's number 2. I would say that right now Ohio State is the better defense. Oregon is the better offense and special teams. Ohio State has the better perimeter play. Oregon is the better trench play. I would side with Oregon at quarterback, but Sayin has been really impressive as expected. And coaching, I would have to give it to Day as head coach over Lanning. But staff, I mean, we'll have to see. We'll figure more of these things out as Ohio State and Oregon continue to play football. And then after how Alabama did against Georgia, have to put them in that conversation for power ratings, though not quite yet strength of record. I think Texas at the end of the year could find themselves in that category. Penn State hypothetically could be in that category at the end of the year, especially if they play offense like they did in the fourth quarter, where you're not being as cute. You're getting Aller way more involved in the run game. You're going into max protect more often to compensate for some of those pass protection issues. Oregon was able to get pressure on Aller almost every time he dropped back earlier in the game. Did a better job of preventing that at times in the fourth quarter, especially on that long touchdown pass to Devontae Ross, where they had 7 guys protecting him. 7. So I think if they call the rest of the year like they did in that fourth quarter, they could win it all, but I need to see it to believe it at this point. I really need to see it to believe it. I mean, you come out that way off the bye, and Oregon early fourth quarter has a 94.7% chance to win this game. They'd travel over 2,000 miles. Penn State, there's a good chance still after this game that they have more players taken in this year's NFL draft than Oregon does, and more in the first round. And you come out and you look that way off of a bye while Oregon is on fire. Oregon is doing their best to survive, and they are not just surviving, but at one point it looks like they are thriving, and at one point they're ahead by double digits. That's shameful. It all falls on James Franklin. And the fact that from a roster standpoint, it appeared they followed the Ohio State model and the Michigan model and, you know, the model of what Clemson tried to do this year, the model of what Florida State did in 2023. But it's anything but those. It's much closer to Clemson's than Michigan's, Florida State's, Ohio State's, anything like that. It's so... Or Texas. Texas returned a lot entering the 2024 season. Or not a ton, but they returned enough at key positions, quarterback, offensive line, brought in transfers at receiver, returned some key contributors, and recruited extremely well on defense. And they have just... It's been a disappointment. And I think for Penn State, you have to win out to have a successful season. I said that for both Clemson and Penn State preseason, they were national title or bust years because they did not recruit or coach at the level to consistently reach national title contention every year. And Aller, I think there's a good chance that he'll succeed in the NFL, which will be even more damning on Franklin because he's not succeeding at Penn State right now. We know Knowles from his time at Oklahoma State, from this game at Penn State, and from his time at Ohio State to be an elite DC. And if you don't win anything with him after all you return on offense, that's damning too, because he'll probably go somewhere else and have success as a defensive coach again. So for James Franklin, you have to win something of significance. You have to beat Ohio State. You have to win the Big Ten, or at least one of those. And if you lose another game before the playoffs, well, then you probably have to win it all. Otherwise, when are you going to win anything of significance for Penn State? And I can't pick them to do anything right now of importance. It's put up or shut up time. And I've picked James Franklin to win a couple of big games last year, picked him to win it this year against Oregon. I'm done. I'm not picking him against Ohio State. At this point, I may not even pick them against Indiana. Indiana is so much better coached. Indiana actually develops players on the offensive side of the ball. They have better used the portal. They are more fundamentally sound. They psychotically prepare for their opponents, as Ohio State did when they won it all, as Michigan did when they won it all, as Georgia, as Alabama teams before them. Penn State doesn't do that. Penn State doesn't psychotically prepare for their opponents. They try to force a round peg into a square hole, or a square peg into a round hole, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. What happened with those running backs for Penn State? Why did they get so few carries? I know it's because they were getting stopped by Oregon's defense, but you find ways to get them involved. You have to, as they are the key to your victory. That's how you're going to win games. You're not going to win games doing what Ohio State does. You do not have their wide receiver talent or their development at quarterback. You don't. Win with your offensive line. Win with your quarterback run. Win with your running backs. And you didn't do it in your most opportune spot. Even if Oregon is better than Ohio State, and the advanced metrics would say they are right now, hosting Oregon versus traveling to Ohio State is probably the equivalent of a touchdown point swing. And Oregon, to this point, if you lost to Oregon at home and you want to beat Ohio State on the road, simple math, this is, of course, factoring out matchups, but bear with me, you'll have to be 14 points better than you were yesterday to beat Ohio State. That's going to require a ton of improvement, a ton of soul searching, and probably some favorable matchups against Ohio State that you did not have against Oregon. So I picked Penn State to win it all preseason. I'm changing my pick for sure to one of Oregon or Ohio State, and I will lean with Oregon to win it all right now. I'm out on James Franklin. I'm out on Penn State until further notice. They will have to prove me wrong. Thank you so much for watching this segment on College Football with Sam. Before we close out here, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this video around, comment your thoughts and analysis down below so I can read them and reply to them if I have the time. Members get priority replies, but I try to reply to everyone. And also hit the notification bell for the channel and also for any team playlists you are interested in. If you want to support the channel financially, you can always super chat me in the comment section, but I prefer that you sign up as a paid member of the Patreon page or as a YouTube member, or that you can purchase some wonderful merchandise to represent us. I'll see you all soon and have a fantastic day.